What's going on, everyone? So it looks like the Raptors are interested in Damian Lillard. The Raptors seem to be emerging out of left field to come in and maybe swoop Damian Lillard from the Miami Heat. So the Raptors have shown interest in Damian Lillard per HP Basketball. That's the thing nobody really saying, but everyone around the league kind of knows that the Raptors are amongst the teams via Locked On NBA podcast. So this is something that I talked about the other day. Right, when we got the report that a emerging Eastern Conference team is coming out of the woodworks, a couple teams that came to mind were the Indiana Pacers and as well as the Toronto Raptors were a team that I could absolutely see kind of throwing their hat in the ring to potentially go and acquire Damian Lillard. Now, we've seen this before with Kawhi Leonard, right? We saw what Ujiri is willing to do. And he's a guy that is willing to take the gamble and roll the dice. And he's a guy that did that with Kawhi Leonard, knowing that Kawhi Leonard was only going to be on the team for 1 year. At least with Dame, you would have him for a couple years, right? You'd have them for several seasons, which is much more than what you saw with Kawhi Leonard, and that led to an NBA championship. This time, it wouldn't be championship or bust this year. You could kind of go make the move, acquire Damian Lillard, and now start working the pieces around it to build the contending team, right? You probably keep Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes. You're probably maybe trading OG Anunoby, right? Because that would be a nice piece to kind of put a package around for a team like Portland. They got draft picks. They got everything like that. And it also feels like at some point, Ujiri needs to do something, needs to make some type of move, right? The Raptors have kind of been in this like purgatory ever since getting Kawhi Leonard. The one thing that they could really use is a guy like Damian Lillard, just an absolute bucket. That's Toronto's big problem is they don't have that consistent go-to scorer. And so they could take a guy like a Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, and whatever else, go put that package together and compete for a Damian Lillard trade, and that could really put some pressure on Miami to kind of get a deal done. Now, Damian Lillard to the Raptors, one, how excited is he going to be about that, right? Probably not going to be super stoked, but I don't see him being one of those guys that are like, oh, I'm not going to show up, I'm not going to play or whatever. I know there were reports that came out and people are taking it as gospel, right? That Damian Lillard isn't going to show up to camp for any team other than the Heat. I don't see that happening. I don't, right? Like Damian Lillard has said publicly that he would, right? Now, was some of that the NBA pressure? Sure. But Dame doesn't strike me as that guy that's going to pull a James Harden or something like that. He's a guy that's going to play wherever he can play, and he's going to be and continue to be that model professional. He's been that this entire process. I don't see them all of a sudden changing that. And look, Toronto coming in and swooping Damian Lillard, it's not the craziest thing in the world, right? I mean, we just saw the Knicks get swooped on Donovan Mitchell, right? You saw that the Knicks were playing hardball. Oh, go get a better deal. Go do this. Going back and forth. And the Cavs came in and said, hey, we'll give you this. And it was a lesser deal than what the Knicks probably could have gave them. But hey, you play games, guess what happens? And you may see that with the Heat, right? Where Miami, they keep prolonging this thing. They keep playing these games. They keep procrastinating and, not doing everything in their power. If a team comes along and says, hey, like, we're willing to go and make a move for Dame and we can give you as good, if not a better package, then, again, Miami doesn't have like this ridiculous haul that they could give up, right? Like, they don't have this insane, like, nobody can compete type package. They have a package that, by all reports and accounts, isn't very enticing or appealing for the Portland Trailblazers, right? And if a team can come close or even better, I could see Dame going to another team, right? And they could still have a very formidable roster. Like, let's say their trade package is something like OG Anunoby, Gary Trent, maybe they trade Grady Dick, Maybe I'm trying to think of who else is on that roster that might be entitled. Maybe like Flynn, right? Because he's been showing the promise of being like a vacuum scorer. What is it, Coloco? Maybe you do something like that, right? Basically, you're opening your wallet to, hey, whoever you want, it's yours, right? And you'd have Damian Lillard, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam. You'd have Dennis Schroeder. You'd have Jalen McDaniels if you keep him, Jakob Poeltl, right? Otto Porter, he should be healthy at some point this year, right? So you could have a pretty solid team. But like I've said with like Miami, some of these other teams, is that it wouldn't also just be about winning this year, right? Like, for example, like the Phoenix Suns trading for Kevin Durant. I said back when that happened, the Suns weren't going to win anything that year, and that trade wasn't necessarily to win that last year, right? Yes, does it give them the opportunity to win? Would anyone have been surprised if they won the chip? Absolutely not. But it was more so about get Kevin Durant now, and then we build the team around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker however we need to now be that contending team. And they went and, got Bradley Beal, and they still have Ayton that they can maybe potentially trade. I actually think he will be traded at some point this year. Time will tell. But they also were able to kind of fill out the roster better than many had saw, right? And Dallas, very similar. Now, Dallas, I don't think did as good of a job of filling out its roster, but that's neither here nor there. The point was, you go get Kyrie Irving now, you trade for him, you get him locked up. We're not going to win anything this year, but now we have Luka and Kyrie, and now we could start putting the pieces around them to go and now be that contending team. It could be the same thing for Toronto. You go get Damian Lillard now, you got Dame, Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, and you got your core three guys that now you can start building and filling in all the pieces that you need to build and fill in, and plus whoever else they have, right? I imagine they still have Jakob Poeltl, who is a solid center, right? So you basically got 4 of your starting 5 guys, right? You'd have, Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and, Damian Lillard, and then whoever else is still on the roster, you kind of fill in, and then you could also go get some other pieces. There's still some guys out there that are available, and maybe you try to roll the dice with the guy in the G League or an undrafted guy or something like that. It's a good position for Toronto to be in, right? And look, Miami, obviously they want Dame. Dame obviously wants Miami. That's no secret by any stretch of the imagination. But Miami's going to have to figure out how to put the pieces to the puzzle. Now, there was reports yesterday that the Charlotte Hornets, that they're really interested in Tyler Hero, that they like the idea of Tyler Hero and LaMelo Ball as their backcourt for the upcoming season in the future, right? So maybe you could get some pieces or, some assets that you can now use to throw into a potential trade, because supposedly the Portland Trailblazers aren't interested in Tyler Hero. So, and that kind of makes sense because that's like all they have right now are guards, right? And you're going to be locked up to Tyler Hero's money, and it's like, where do you have him fit, right? So I could see Miami kind of maybe lighten some fuel to the fire. Now, also there's always the possibility that this is just conversation to kind of put Miami into gear, right? Like that's definitely something that could be the case, where it's like, hey, let's kind of light a fire here a little bit and put some news out there that like other teams are interested, because there were talks and reports that Miami was basically playing hardball and daring them to go find a better package. And I don't think Dame is going to have like this huge market, but again, like I said, the Brooklyn Nets, the Indiana Pacers, and the Toronto Raptors made a lot of sense for me when that Dame news came out that an Eastern Conference team was looking at him. And it still makes a lot of sense to me, and I absolutely could see the Toronto Raptors going and making a push for him. And they could outbid the Miami Heat if they wanted to, right? Like, based on the reports, like, they're not super hyped about Miami's young talent. So if they can get, again, I don't think they're going to get a Scotty Barnes or anything like that, but OG Anunoby is currently better than all the young guys and all the pieces you would get in a Miami trade, right? And he's still young enough to kind of fit the timeline of your current roster, right? Now, you got Jeremy Grant, so what do you do with Jeremy Grant? But still, I mean, you have Grant at the 4, you have, say, OG at the 3, you have Nurkic at the center, you got Scoot Henderson at the point, and whoever else, Sharp or Simons or whoever at the shooting guard. Like, not a bad roster. Not a bad roster at all. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Miami could be in trouble and need to get a move on a potential trade? Do you think Toronto kind of comes and swoops in and steals Damian Lillard? Do you think maybe it could be some other team? Again, we saw this last year. Saw this very same thing last year. All signs pointed to Donovan Mitchell going to the New York Knicks. And Donovan Mitchell thought he was heading to the Knicks. The Knicks thought they were getting Donovan Mitchell. And then the Cleveland Cavaliers came and swooped him up. And we saw how that went. So, just something to think about. But anyway, love to hear your thoughts and opinions, however you feel, down in the comments.